On the topic of onshore versus offshore, I think if all things were equal, we'd all love to hire local Australian workers, but the wages in Australia and in Western Australia make that really uneconomical. What it means is that the cost of everything that you deliver is just so much higher. We're all familiar with the idea of offshore. We use offshore things all the time that we buy, and we're familiar with it. Now, sometimes offshore can have a bit of a negative connotation. We've dealt with offshore call centres where the quality is low, and that can leave it with a bit of a smear. And there's some good reasons for that. Offshore can be very challenging to work properly. If you deal with developers overseas, the quality is often extremely poor or mixed. There's often no legal entity to chase if things don't go the way that you were hoping. Communication barriers can be absolutely rampant where you think you've asked for one thing and what you get is something completely different. And so that means that in a complex field like software development, where we're really trying to understand someone's business and it needs to be done in a very specific way, offshore development can often look like it's a complete non-starter because the risks are just too high. You can end up throwing money in a hole, and admittedly it's less money, but it's still money in a hole, and no one wants to do that. However, there are some ways to get offshore to work, and I think we've really cracked that. So we've been running our own offices. So we have offices overseas in India and in Sri Lanka where we have full-time employees working together as a team. Now, the difference that makes is that we're not using labour hire, we're not using subcontractors. These are people who have applied for jobs and gone through extremely rigorous testing. We interview less than 1 in 100 of the people that applies for us because we test and screen our applicants so thoroughly. We make sure that they are absolutely 100% up to our standards before we'll even talk to them. And then once we do, we make sure that they are competent, capable communicators and that they can deliver to the quality standards that we and our customers expect. We make sure that our staff in positions of responsibility all have police checks to make sure that the security is maintained. We train our staff, and finally we have really rigorous processes so that the communication gaps and the ambiguities are left to a minimum. Because our staff work with us so long, they understand that a line like this or a circle like this means something specific. So we have a way of communicating with our developers that they understand so that the mistakes are kept to an absolute minimum. Now, our offshore team is for back-end delivery. From the front end, you're always dealing with somebody based in Western Australia because I do believe it's important to have someone local who can hold the responsibility, who can hold the relationship, someone that you can sit down in a room and speak with, but that person then can take whatever you need done and put it into requirements that can then be understood and delivered. And that delivers much better cost savings for the customer, as well as the fact that having a larger team means that there's high levels of reliability and support. Because rather than having a team of 4 people, you can have a larger team so that if somebody's sick or if somebody leaves, you've always got someone there to step in and support you. In terms of company size, we just recently hit a milestone of 60 people, which was pretty exciting. And that's 10 people who are based in Western Australia. And in addition to that, we have another 50 people offshore. 27 of those people are based in Sri Lanka, and then 23 are based in India in our offices in each of those locations. In terms of India, we actually have 2 offices. They're fairly close together. One's in a place called Surat, and the other is in a place called Ahmedabad. You might recall Surat was in the movie Slumdog Millionaire. Although it may not have actually been credited, it would have just been Indian City. But yeah, it was based in Surat.